Hi, I'm Anita Wager, and I'm actually going to turn it right over to Dean Binbo to really, truly give you a hearty Peabody welcome.
Hi, I'm Camilla Benbow, and here is my hearty Peabody welcome. uh, this is rather unusual to have a family weekend with all of us being remote, but I think we're all used to that these days, that we're doing things that we have never done before. And so I hope nonetheless that while this is very different, that I hope it is meaningful for you and that you learn a lot of things about Peabody, Vanderbilt, and how we are caring for your student. And let me just tell you a little bit about Peabody. Peabody's about enhancing the human condition. We do that through our work on learning, development, and the context in which it occurs. You know, our faculty create new understandings in these areas, but perhaps most importantly, what our faculty do is to create the leaders of tomorrow. Of course, when we think about that, we think about your sons or daughters, because they are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And we hope that through our work that we're going to launch them, that we're going to help them become all that they can be, and that we do this in an emotionally caring environment for them. And so, without further ado, I want to go on to the part that makes Peabody so special, and that's its people. And you're going to meet some of the people today, some of our faculty, but truly what makes Peabody special is all the people that's in our community, our faculty, our staff, and of course, our students. But with that, I'd like to turn it back to Anita Wager, and she can run this session for you. But I just want to leave and say that we are all here for you and for your son or daughter, and we are all here committed to one thing, in helping them blossom and flourish, even in these challenging COVID environments. So let's get at it.
Thank you, Dean Bimbo. The first thing I want to let everybody know is that if you have any questions at any point during the talk, if you'll post them in the Q&A, and after we're done with sort of the formal part of this, we'll turn to all of those questions. And so you can add questions anytime you want. Just to let you know how we're gonna do this, we're gonna start with having Sharon Shields talk about student empowerment, engagement, and development. Next, we'll have Hasina Moyudin talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'll go over some of the issues with undergraduate academic affairs. Paul Spear can talk about HOD, and then it's going to come back to me, and I'm going to talk about both teacher education and some of our psych-related majors. And throughout this, our goal is to not only share what we do all of the time, but also what we're doing special this semester and next semester, just because of the new situation we're in. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sharon Shields. Sharon, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm so glad to be here with all of you this evening and to share some about our Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing and Peabody Career Services. I just want you to know, and I want to echo Dean Benbow's words, that we are really here for your students. We want to provide them a very holistic experience while they're at Peabody College. When I first took this job in the dean's office about 9 years ago, Dean Benbow said, here's your job description. I want you to support and care for our students and create a community of caring and support for the students. So it wasn't just an individual job, but it was bringing the whole college together to really support the students that are here. And so in conjunction with the Undergraduate Dean of Students Office at Vanderbilt University, and in collaboration with all of our academic deans here at Peabody College, we really try to provide that safety net of support for the students. Our office works with co-curricular activities, and even in this time of COVID, we have found that it is so important to have contact with your students and to be there for them in person. And so our office is on the Peabody campus, and we are in person 5 days a week to serve the students, to support them in ways that they may need it, and to be present with them. And so I want to tell you a little bit about what we do and some of our programming for the students. The top of the list is really co-curricular programming. And yes, this has been challenging. Almost all of our programs in the past have been on campus, in person, having lots of connection and contact with students in the present. But we have found that there's been some silver linings with COVID even. And so we have had to be very innovative and creative in our programming. And so, for example, one of our graduate assistants has now set up a coffee match for faculty, staff, and students, that they will have coffee with each other either virtually or set an appointment to socially distance on campus or at an off-campus location to just get to know each other in person. We are very limited in the number of students who can be together in gatherings, but that one-on-one experience is so important. We are currently matching over 80 matches right now, so 160 students and faculty and staff are taking advantage of this to have that human connection. One of our assistant deans is now providing a new program for students, and one of them will be an on-campus where students can be present for a program called True North. And they will be doing some reflective practice, some discussion that helps with their well-being. And I would just say that as we go through this, we're working with our student organizations. Our career service office had another record year in placing our professional students. We have 92% of our professional students placed in jobs during this time. So I think you can see that we are really trying to do hybrid ways of engaging and investing and supporting our students here on campus.
I'm gonna now thank you so much, Sharon. There's actually a question for you, and that's how are students getting matched for coffees?
Actually, we have a matching center that Ethan Destag is running, and he is helping to match students and faculty and others with interest, and then they'll get rematched again over several weeks if they want a rematch, or if they want to meet with the same person again and have another discussion. He will make sure that they are matched correctly.
And just to follow up, the students all did get an RSVP form. So they just filled out the RSVP form, kind of put, if they're a faculty, student, or staff, and then Ethan helped match them together. So it's a really easy process, and we're excited that so many people were interested in it. And I think I'm next, so I did just jump in. Hello, everybody. My name is Hasina Muhyiddin, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at Peabody College. And I, too, welcome you to this session, and so excited to be here. The mission of our office is really to provide programming and resources to make sure that students, faculty, and staff feel welcome, supported, and part of the Peabody community. Like Dean Shields had mentioned, a lot of our work is community building and making sure that people feel connected to one another. And so we work very hard to provide programming and resources to ensure that diverse voices are celebrated, that we have speakers come to our campus on a variety of topics to deepen conversations and understanding of equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. We help support trainings and other resources that can provide faculty, students, and staff with the tools that they need to have difficult conversations. And we do this with a lot of partners. We have a faculty EDI committee, as well as student committees, both at the professional graduate level as well as the undergraduate level, and work very closely with our partners to provide programming for students. And so we're excited to be able to do that for your students here at Peabody. A couple of signature events for our office is the Dean's Diversity Lecture Series, which Dean Camilla Benbow very generously supports, bringing in notable scholars from across the country to talk about issues of equity, diversity, inclusion. And one of the things that's really important to our office is to make sure there are student spaces for students to get some one-on-one time with the scholars to learn more about their journey in academia, as well as more in-depth knowledge about their research process. So we definitely encourage you guys to support your students to come to that event, because it's always really well attended and provides a lot of insight for our students. Our students are also behind a program we call Faculty FaceTime. This is a lunchtime event where students are able to have kind of hear more about the journey of our faculty. One thing our students have often told us is they want to get to know their faculty in more informal settings. It's great to get to know them in classes, but sometimes you don't really get to hear their story or learn more about them until you have that time to ask questions about how did they get there? What drove them to be interested in the things they're interested in? And Faculty FaceTime provides that space. And it's been a great space for all of our community to come together. We have undergraduate students, graduate professional students, faculty and staff all come to hear more about Peabody faculty. And our next one is going to be October 16th with Sarah Suter, who is the program director for our Community Development and Action program. And we're really excited to have her. And finally, I wanted to mention, I think Sharon mentioned this as well, that we also have a lot of identity and affinity groups associated with the Dean of Students office. So with the Black Cultural Center, the Women's Center, the Office of Religious Life, LGBTQI Life, and the Student Center for Social Justice and Identity provide a lot of programming for students to think and explore different identities that they have, as well as bringing in speakers and having events to deepen their understanding of different groups. And so I hope that you will be able to, I hope that your students will be able to access some of these resources and programs, and would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hasina. There was one question specific to this, which is, are there speakers that you're bringing in that are helping students navigate issues of COVID and the elections? I didn't know if you had any. I knew of some, but.
Yes, and I think probably the same. I think there's a Vote Vanderbilt campaign, or Vanderbilt Votes, I'm sorry, campaign that's going on that has a lot of resources to help students navigate voting, and especially in this time of COVID. And Anita, is that the one that you were thinking about?
So I know there's also, in the Department of Teaching and Learning, we are having a session open to students and faculty on, I think it's this Friday, tomorrow afternoon, about teaching during the election. So for anybody who's going to be, anybody who's teaching, to think about, like, how do you address that? How do you talk to your students about this kind of thing? All right, so I guess I'm next. Hello again, everyone. I am Anita Wager. As I said before, not only am I Associate Dean for Undergraduate Academic Affairs, but I am also a faculty member in Teaching and Learning, and I teach elementary school teachers how to teach math. I just got back from class shortly, just a little bit ago. So I am teaching on campus this term. I'm teaching two courses on campus this term. But I'll talk later about my role as a faculty member and about the teaching programs. But in my role as Associate Dean, I oversee the undergraduate programs. I work with faculty, the directors of undergraduate studies in each of our departments. I work with the faculty members who are advisors, and I work with students. I also work closely with faculty council on any academic issues and coordinate with the Department of Student Affairs. I am the person that your child comes to if they need to drop a class, if they are feeling a bit overwhelmed and just need a little guidance. I'm sort of a backstop for everybody's advisor. I am, in one of my roles, I'm the chair of the Undergraduate Administrative Committee. And so that is the committee that students come to if they want to petition to drop a class late or change a grade to pass fail or something like that. So any sorts of those kind of questions come through that committee, and I chair that. I also work really closely with the other 3 undergraduate schools. We meet twice a week now. We used to meet like once a week or monthly in some cases, but right now we're meeting twice a week just to make sure that we're on top of things that are going on for all of the students. And finally, I'm also the college coordinator for Immersion Vanderbilt, and I will talk about Immersion Vanderbilt at the end of this. But I also want to mention how my role has changed, or what I am doing differently right now. I'm not on campus other than for teaching, but I am Zooming quite regularly with students. I have, sometimes students just need somebody to kind of check in with. I have about 20 students that I meet with every other week, one-on-one, just somebody that they can say, yep, I'm keeping up with my work, or no, I'm falling behind in this class. Do you know who I can talk to? So I make myself available for those kinds of questions, really kind of bridging support between academic and sort of social issues that may arise. I'm also meeting with students one-on-one on campus whenever they're up for that. And I've signed up for the coffee group so that hopefully I'll get to meet more students that way. Those are some of the bigger changes that have occurred while I've been on campus, or while we have been on campus less. And I think with that, those are my main big roles. I'm going to shift and now talk a bit more about Peabody generally. One thing that has not changed at all is that this is an amazing, amazing place to work and to learn and to study. We are truly a community of critical thinkers with a deep commitment to equity. As a top 10 graduate school in the country, that means that your children are learning from top researchers. All of our research, all of our instruction is very much informed by research. We pair teaching and learning very closely. Our instructional practices are leading edge, in part because of the strong research we do. We also have incredible community partners that enable us to help match student interests to the work out in the community. And we've already talked about the diversity lecture series. All of these things are things that are core to who we are and continue to be so even during these more difficult times. So if I'm gonna shift a bit here, and we're gonna talk about, while we do have 5 departments, I often talk about them in 3 ways. HOD, and I'm gonna turn it over in a moment to Paul Spear to talk about that. we have our psych-related degrees, and we also have teaching-related degrees. And so I'm going to shift gears and hand it over to Paul Spear to talk about HOD.
Great, thank you, Anita. My name is Paul Spear, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Human and Organizational Development, and I'm chair of the department. HOD is a very unique major. So you look at other universities and nobody has a major like that, although I'll note that there are several universities that are developing majors or have over the years that are modeled on what we've developed here. So HOD is now, what do you think I'd know? I think about 30 years old. So it was built here some time ago, and it was designed very intentionally, and it's very much about teaching students to be critical thinkers and understand how to solve problems, whether those problems are in business or in nonprofits or in government agencies. The nature of our economy is, we say we have a knowledge economy, but the essence and work of the economy we all live in now requires all of us to work in teams. We can't, back in the day, we would go to college and we get trained and we learn how to do a skill and we get a career and we would do that skill and off we would go. And today, you can no longer do that. You have to continue learning. There's, new technologies, new skills, new understandings that are growing. And so all of us have to invest both in a college degree, but also how to learn as we advance in our lives and ways to enrich that. So HOD is very much about applied problem solving, and that means working together in teams in organizational contexts. And so the major itself is very interdisciplinary. We have faculty members from public health or anthropology or psychology or sociology, many different fields, and we're bringing together in our curriculum an understanding of the interdependence of so many problems that we all face. And so our curriculum really breaks down into a focus on a set of core classes in HOD, and then some tracks, which is what are up on the slide. And then when students get into their junior and senior years, they have a capstone experience for a semester, and that's students go out and are in an immersive way working in some kind of organization, whether it's a business or a nonprofit or a government agency, and they're applying what they've learned in our major in that real world setting for the whole semester. So they work about 30 hours a week in that setting, and then they are simultaneously taking 5 different courses, and they meet intensively and integrate lots of different themes that they've learned over their time as an HOD student. Our tracks, as you can see, we have 5 different tracks, and they're very flexible, but one is concentrated on leadership and organizational effectiveness. One is focused on community leadership and development. A third on health and human services. A fourth on international development, and a 5th on education policy. And that breadth allows students to find something that is resonant for them so that they can really find a setting and a context that appeals to them, and they can take what they've learned and really get out and get some experience in that kind of a context. The capstone experience that we have is unique, and Anita, I think, is going to speak here in a little bit about Immersion, the Immersion Vanderbilt experience, which is modeled on what was developed in HOD. So I think in closing, before I turn it back to Anita, I would just say that part of what's exciting about being in HOD is we have students that are bright and have such a breadth of interests and experience. And so getting them in our classes and thinking about lots of different real world problems and how we're going to address them, and getting students plugged into those settings and seeing the creativity and energy and insight that they have is enjoyable for everybody. So that makes it really fun. Anita?
Thank you, Paul. There actually is a question specifically for you. And it is, do you have a 4+1 HOD program that can combine an A&S major?
Well, the short answer is I don't think we do. Anita, I don't know, maybe you do know. I mean, one of the things I was in response, you've heard all of us talk, one of the challenges of being at Vanderbilt, it is just a rich environment. There are so many things going on, and it is hard to keep up with all the opportunities and speakers and programs. I don't think there, anyway, that's my rationale for why I don't know directly the answer, but I don't think there is a 4+1 with a master's. Are you aware of that?
I do not think there is for HOD. No.
No, there isn't.
Okay. There.
Thank you, Paul. I am now going to speak a little out of my wheelhouse on some of the psychology related fields, but I am sure that Dean Bimbo could jump in here and help me out if need be. I'm just going to speak very broadly that really these majors are understanding the basic psychological functioning that influences development. And we're really looking at the intersections of families and communities and schools in a variety of ways with 3 different possible majors: a child development major, a child studies major, and a cognitive studies major. And while these feel very separate, maybe from the other parts of, oops, sorry about that, from the other parts of what we do, in fact, I work a lot with some of the folk because my research is in early childhood mathematics. In the teaching part of things, I also am able to connect with and work with some of the folks in child development, which is really, really kind of fun. And that's my quick overview of this, the psych-related majors. And in terms of teacher education, there are 3 majors: early childhood and elementary, secondary education, and special education. And for these, something really special about these majors at Peabody is they're relatively small. And what that means is that your child has a pretty close connection with lots of faculty. I got 2 texts tonight from former students who are just like, oh my gosh, I'm going into the classroom next week for the first time all year. I'm so excited to see my kids. And this is from somebody who graduated 3 years ago. And it's just these sorts of relationships really develop. One of the downsides, and this was a question that came in earlier this week, is that that does mean that the program is pretty set. Like, we don't have a lot of flexibility, which means, for example, in elementary and early childhood, a travel abroad opportunity is only available in the fall of junior year. And that is just because we've got to fit all of the courses in within a certain period of time. The programs aren't so large that we offer 2 sections of the courses at different times. So it's a pretty rigid setup. On the other hand, in a non-pandemic world, there are also available other courses that enable international travel. For example, last year, I was fortunate enough to co-teach the Harry Potter and children's literature class, and we went to the UK over spring break. We got back and then everything shut down, but we did make it in. And we went to Edinburgh and explored all the places that J.K. Rowling was writing the books. We went to the graveyard where she imagined Tom Riddle's grave to be. Then we went to London and explored many of the places where the movies were filmed. So there are these opportunities, and we have several of these kind of courses that there's travel during spring break. So that's just another opportunity for international travel. And that's, so generally that's all of these, the early childhood and elementary and the secondary program and special education really do require that we have a pretty set time when courses have to be taken. They're amazing majors. I speak from experience as a former elementary school teacher and one who loves teaching students. And I'm now going to just give you a brief overview of Immersion Vanderbilt, which every undergraduate student will participate in this intensive learning experience that happens in and outside of the classroom. And as Paul mentioned, this was really modeled on the capstone experience that students in HOD have, but it's also similar to the student teaching experience that students in the teacher certification programs have. And in fact, students who are student teaching or do a capstone are not required to do an additional immersion program project. They can if they want, and some have chosen to. Most of them don't so far, but Immersion Vanderbilt's fairly new. In the psych-related areas, the students do identify an Immersion Vanderbilt, an immersion project, and often those are something that they have, they might be working in a lab and they build an immersion idea around that. What immersion involves is really combining an interest a student has, maybe with some coursework, maybe some travel, and putting together just something that steps out beyond the walls of the university so that we see how learning and development goes across. And now I'm going to turn it over for questions. And I see, the first one I see is, what are some of the graduate fields of study that cognitive studies majors seek? A lot of cognitive studies majors end up going on to graduate school. Some are thinking about med school. And Camilla, you might have some other ideas on that one.
Let me unmute. I actually think it's a very flexible major, just like HOD. They go in many different directions because understanding how people develop and learn is an important skill and an important insight. So yes, they do go on into graduate school in psychology. A lot of them do, clinical psychology, but many do go on into medical school, especially if somebody wants to become a pediatrician, for example. But even in law, it can be helpful, or social work. Or you can, so there is many different paths forward. There's child life specialist degrees that somebody could go and pursue. They could go and work, many of them go on to nursing. So I would just say, really the sky's the limit. There are just many options and directions that you can take that major with and have wonderful career or continuing education opportunities.
And Camilla, there's another question for you. While it is impossible to predict the future, what advice do you have for the class of 2021, the seniors on campus this year?
Oh, that's a good question. I wasn't prepared for that one. I think that as challenging and as hard as this year is for all of us, I think we got to think about this as we think back on the Great Depression or World War II. And I think we needed, these were times, were momentous times. And I think as we face these challenges, we grow through them. And so, yes, I think that there are difficulties and there are lots of disappointments about things that we can and cannot do. But I actually think that it will help you, if you learn from it and reflect on it, it'll help you become a stronger human being with more empathy. So I think this is a wonderful growth opportunity to grow through the challenges, and I would embrace it. I would embrace it. I would look at every situation that you face as a learning opportunity. Why is this happening? How do I respond? And how do I become a more mature and a wiser person as a result? So to me, that's how I take this cloud, and that's the silver lining. I think all of the students who are going through this year are going to mature at a much faster rate and be ready for the world and all its challenges that it throws at you. Because we all know, once we leave school, the world of work, for example, can become exceptionally challenging. So embrace it and grow with it.
So the next question I'm happy to take, and that is, what % of your classes are in person and how many more do you anticipate in the spring semester? We're at about 42% in person at Peabody. Our goal originally was 50, but we weren't sure if we were going to have classrooms big enough for some of our larger classes. We have now figured out how to make some of that work, and it's our plan for spring is definitely over 50. We don't have a hard number, but if we were 40-60 in the fall, I feel like we're going to be 60-40 in the spring.
Most definitely. That's a push.
And then another question is there a way to change the curriculum or class sequencing to allow more flexibility in a semester abroad? My daughter is an elementary education major, and the only time she's seemingly allowed to study abroad is one semester, fall of 2021. That is, I kind of explained that as part of one of the pros and cons of a very small program. I think the pros far outweigh it, and that is really having a close connection to your cohort, but also to lots of faculty. And the con is that we are pretty limited in how much flexibility we can offer. And unfortunately, the way the programming is set up, it's pretty set.
Yeah. As we say, we craft one teacher at a time. And I think that kind of captures it. The classes are really small. When you talk to your daughter, son or daughter who's in the program, they'll tell you how small those classes are. And I think you can realize that it really wouldn't be a very good learning experience, even if we could separate it, because you learn from your peers as well. So I think it's one of those balancing acts and trying to get the Goldilocks solution. And there are trade-offs, but we wish we could do everything, but unfortunately it would add another year of study for your son or daughter, and I bet you would prefer not to have to pay for tuition for one more year.
So there, and another question is, does Vanderbilt assist students in finding internships? And I'm not clear whether this is about, say, internships for the capstone, in which case, absolutely. But Paul, did you want to add to this question or response?
Sure. I mean, part of what we're trying to achieve with the HOD capstone is really getting students as much real experience before they leave college as possible. So what we have is a whole lot of resources to support students finding capstone sites. So we have several hundred sites that students can select from, and we have just a vast range of different sectors of the workforce that they can choose, but we do not select that for them. And we have faculty that meet with students to talk through how to present themselves, how to do the search, but we really are wanting students to go through the job search on their own. And we have a lot of resources to help them, but we do not assign them their capstone site. We want this to be a mini job search so that when they graduate, they have gone through that. Because it's tough. It's hard to do that. We all know that. And we're really trying to facilitate it. So we do not place them. We provide a list of options. We talk to them about how to present themselves, how to interview, how to pursue that, but they have to do that on their own.
And in terms of other internships that might not be like a summer internship, there are different offices. A lot of times people are getting support also just from faculty members. And, you know, I actually met with an HOD student earlier this year who's really interested in working on Wall Street, and I was able to make a connection for him. So there's just a lot of different ways. Paul, there was another question about HOD specific question, and it was that if you could speak about the leadership and organizational effectiveness track a little more.
For that track, there are 3 required classes, and 2 of those are fixed. One of those is about leadership theory and practice, and the other is an advanced organizational theory class. And so every student in that track takes both of those classes. Beyond that, they select from several options about what classes what they can take. And some of them are about analysis of organizations, and others are about human resource management. So there's several others that students can select from. So students that are in the leadership and organizational effectiveness track will take those 3 classes, and then they take 2 other track classes, and they can be in the LOE in that track, or they can be from other tracks that we offer opportunities in.
And the next question, what are the most important things we as parents can do to help our students during this time? That's a really good question. Or it's a really beautiful question. I think all of I'm also speaking as a parent. My son has graduated from college very recently, but staying in touch, making sure they're not feeling isolated, reaching out to us if you are worried about them in that respect. But also giving them a lot of leash to run and grow. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if anyone wanted to add to that.
You know, I think my thought is hitting the right balancing act of. I'd like to kind of build on on Anita's question about or comment about giving them a lot of leash and leeway. I think it's important under this kind of caring environment to let them a little bit fend for themselves and maybe even make a mistake, because I think it's really, really important for the students to learn how to handle when a mistake or something goes wrong, and to develop self-efficacy that they know how to handle that they can do this on their own. So this is kind of, college is a transition year. They leave their home after they graduate from college. They should be fairly independent as adults. And so let's use this time to help them navigate, make decisions on their own, with, of course, advice, but help them make some decisions on their own on how they want to lead their life, and help and allow them to learn from their mistakes, but also to figure out how they go forward. And I think it's such an important thing to learn, is that, yes, you make a mistake, but pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and just go at it and try again. And, you don't develop that confidence unless you've experienced it. And I think under this caring environment that Peabody provides, it's just a wonderful place for them to maybe scrape their knee every now and then. Not to break their leg, but to scrape their knee.
I would also say I was a faculty head of house for 4 years, and I've taught undergraduates for over 40 years. And now I sit in a place where we support our students and really listen. And so my advice is very similar to Anita's and the dean's, and that is kind of trust their path and let them live their journey while they're here. And be that listening ear, but also encourage them to reach out for other listening ears that are here. And that's why we have all of the supports that we try to put in place for the students so that they do have other perspectives that they begin to grow and learn on their own and really discern how they're going to navigate these things. And even though it's a very difficult time, we are going to be living in a world that changes over their lifetime, and to be able to help them to see that none of us have a roadmap for this, that we're all making the roadmap, and we're all looking to grow and learn and reflect and to really become better people because of the adversity and the experiences that we have.
That was beautifully said, Sharon.
And that actually leads in very nicely to the next question, which is, what are the long-term impacts for our students looking to become teachers in such a changed environment for education? And as a longtime advocate for teachers and the professionalization of teaching, I have a hope that this is actually showing the world, and certainly this country, how very important teachers are. The work of teaching is really hard, and a lot of parents are finding that out right now as they're trying to figure out how to support their kids at home and on Zoom. But also, we don't know. It's going to change. That's inevitable. There's been a call for a long time that it's going to change, and it feels like that change is perhaps going to be coming sooner because of this, because of a pandemic. But I do believe we're not preparing our teachers just to teach in schools as they are today, but preparing them to be the leaders that make changes to schools for the future.
Yeah, I second that. I really think that this is going to lead to more opportunities for teachers, because I think people are realizing how challenging that work is, but also how important it is. And I think too, for those of us who become teachers, we also learn how rewarding it is. I think there's nothing better than to see one of your students just blossom and bloom under your guidance. There's just nothing that is more rewarding, or to see them go on, especially if they had a challenge and you helped them through it, and then you see them succeed. You opened the door for somebody, and that led to great things. I just get goosebumps thinking about the students I've worked with over the years, and feel really good about that influence. So I think people are going to realize how important it is. So I think there are going to be more opportunities, not less.
Then there's a question, does Peabody offer a 5th year to get a master's program for elementary education or special education? So many of our students do, after they complete their 4 years and get their undergraduate, they do apply to and join us in our professional programs to get a second degree. They can start to take a couple of those classes in their 4th year here, which I think we can take, well, It depends. That's when they come and talk to me if they want to take more. But you could take two classes two graduate classes in your senior year that will go towards your professional degree. What is the best place on campus for a socially distanced picnic? I bet we all have a different answer to that. I am trying really hard to encourage folks to eat in the tents that we have set up across campus. I have a lot of meetings there, but I feel like it's turned into one of those restaurants that you walk by and it's empty and you don't see enough people there, so you don't go in. But there are so many beautiful, like, secret spots on the lawns. Many of our lawns have socially distanced circles painted on. I saw yesterday when I was teaching, I saw 2 classes set up on the lawn and one class that was being held under one of the tents. But I would pick one of the spots on the lawn, on the Peabody lawn. I don't know if anyone else has a favorite.
No, that would be what I would say too. I think it'd be fun actually for us to kind of do a little activity to see what the students think and collect it. And because there are, as Anita said, just a lot of beautiful spots. The Peabody campus is just a gorgeous, fun, happy place. Maybe not as happy, not full of, with people social distancing, you can't do all the fun, happy things that you're normally used to do, but it's still a very happy and beautiful and serene place, a perfect place for a picnic.
And I would say that one of my favorite places has always been over in front of the Mayburn building. I used to have to just go outside and sit on the steps, and I've seen several students there. I came on campus one day and saw them over there, socially distanced, eating their lunch. And it's just a new, beautiful building. It has been totally renovated. And so it has some beautiful spots that students can sit and just really have a wonderful time talking with each other and having a meal.
And that's something I'd like to say. We just finished renovating the Connector building. So we have 2 buildings that are historic buildings, the Mayborn building and what we now call the 6 Magnolia Circle. But in between, we built the Connector building. And the name of that building is just perfect because it not only connects the 2 buildings, the 2 historic buildings, 6 Magnolia Circle and Mayborn, but it was also designed to connect people, to connect to students. So after you come out of class, that there are places to linger, for you to talk about what you learned in class, or whatever else is going on in your life, to bump into other faculty members, other students. And so we really believed in the importance of community. And when we designed that building, we designed it in a way that it would enhance the building of community. Unfortunately, we can't fully utilize that space right now, but there are still spaces in that building where you can gather and socially distance and enjoy. But just go in and say, next year, we can enjoy that and do the community building. But that's just what Peabody's about, is we're one big family, and we just want to have places where family can get together and talk. And sometimes we get, you have one big happy family meal, and sometimes just a couple of you want to take off and do something. And that's what we kind of built the Peabody campus and designed the Peabody campus for, to enhance our sense of we are one big family.
So both of my classes are in those new buildings, and when the semester began, I felt like I was walking into a very empty space, and there were all of these beautiful chairs set up, socially distanced, and they were always empty, and they are now always full. Whenever I'm there, students hang out there, they study there. Sometimes they're taking online classes there. I can see, they've got their earbuds in and they're taking their class, but they're hanging out across from somebody. And so they are taking advantage of them. So I'm really glad they are making connections in the connector.
So good. I'm glad. Glad the building is functioning as it should. And, you know, for all of you, we opened up that building the weekend students were moving back in. So it was quite the scramble to get done. But I hope they enjoy it, and I hope you get to see and enjoy it eventually.
So there's another question about the best way to reach me if you're worried that your child is feeling isolated. And I put my email address in the chat or in the Q&A. It is Anita, ANITA.Wager, WAGER @vanderbilt.edu. And feel free to reach out anytime if you are worried about that. If you are worried about anything, or you just want to say, hey, I'm really happy my kid is doing great. It's about time to wrap up. I see one more question. How is the counseling program adjusting to train and teach students differently in this new environment? And I don't know if I have a good answer to that question. I mean, I know that they are similar to what we're doing with schools. We are working with schools and children and families in the ways that are safe and possible. We do have students that are out in the schools, but they are wearing masks and wearing shields and getting regularly tested. And I think there's been some virtual counseling that they've been able to participate in. Sharon, I think you might have a good answer to that.
Yeah, telehealth.
Yes, and I think that, again, it's the innovation and where that profession is going, and how we adjust to the changes in the society. And so I do know that counseling is really making those adjustments. They're being innovative, creative, and making sure that the needs are met in a variety of ways. And so I know that Nicole Cobb and many others in our school counseling program are deeply engaged in how that is going to be redesigned, innovated, and meeting those gaps.
So it is time to wrap up. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact any of us. We really, really do appreciate you joining us, and we really appreciate the opportunity to teach your children.
Thank you for trusting us to take good care of your sons and daughters. And all I can promise is that we'll do our best to live up to your trust. All right.